Greeting YouTube. Today we're taking a look at Winter World, the ingenuity of animal survival by Bernd Heinrich, and that's. Can you see the Bernd? No, you can see. So it is very thin. Bernd and Heinrich. You probably know how to spell Heinrich, but I'd never encountered the name Bernd before. Obviously German. I picked this up on a lark. I had never read anything from Heinrich before, but it kind of intrigued me because the idea of having a book focused entirely on winter survival techniques from like for plants and animals, I thought that was a pretty cool idea. I have a particular fascination with books that have a very tight focus. For example, I read the book Cod and then the book Salt, which are about cod and salt, respectively. I thought they were quite interesting. I read a book about the fork once. Yeah. Um, so I went into this blind, and I gotta tell you, I was absolutely delighted with this book. He has a very conversational style of writing. So after I got part of the way through this, I thought, okay, let's go check out and see what other kind of books he's got. Well, in the back it says he's got one called Summer World, so that's a hint right there. But he also has a number of others, so I thought I'd go look at them. And one of the things I like to do is I like to see what other people have to say about an author. It gives me a more encompassing point of view and see how how much does my opinion about the author vary from what the general public feels. And he has one about the mind of ravens. I'm going to get that one for sure. Summer World, if I stumble on it, probably. But one person commented about the fact that Heinrich needs an editor. And I can understand what he meant with that comment. Heinrich has the writing style of how someone who has ADHD thinks, which is how I think, because I have ADHD. And my brain will start here, and then my brain will go. And eventually, it usually makes itself back to the point. But then, if you listen to any of my videos, I often do that. I'll just throw in a little side in, not because I planned it, but because my brain makes me think that way. That's how he writes. But Heinrich is an author. So while he's going off here, he always brings it back. Always. And sometimes it sneaks up on you because you're enjoying what he's writing. Well, at least I was enjoying what he's writing. So I didn't really care that he'd kind of wandered off the path. But then all of a sudden he just kind of makes this sharp turn and he comes back again, and it makes perfect sense. It's not incongruent. It doesn't shock you. It doesn't throw you for a loop in some way or shape or form. I've had books where authors just kind of seem to go boom, and like, what the heck just happened? Why did this book just take a very sharp turn without any kind of justification or anything? No. Heinrich gets to his point, wanders off, and returns to it, and it's wonderful. And his point, one of the things he focuses on, is a bird. It's the kinglet or something like that, I think it was called. I'm not great at remembering those things. But it's just a very small bird that doesn't migrate. It weighs almost nothing. Literally, like a full-grown bird can weigh like 6 grams. But it lives through harsh Vermont and Maine winters. At least they were harsh at the time of this writing. This is from the early 2000s. I think the latest date he mentions is 2003, so 20 years ago. And so he keeps coming back to them because he's amazed by them. He just, even though he understands the science, he's a biologist, he's still amazed by them. He always comes back to these little birds because he's like, even though he understands a lot of what's going on, he still can't fathom how an animal can live on the razor's edge of survival. Literally, if one of these birds does not get sufficient food during the day, they will die that night. They don't have any kind of cushion like a bear does. If a bear isn't, if a bear's 5 kilos lower weight than it was the previous year, it's still going to survive its hibernation cycle. Not these birds. That percentage would kill them. And he writes about this with such love and affection. And again, it's very conversational. He pulls you in, and you're just cruising along with him. You're listening to a man tell you stories. In the process, he also does use proper scientific methods. He does experimentation. He uses proper, Latin taxonomical terms. So, but they don't. They're not they're not incongruent. He may mention the colloquial name, and then in the brackets he'll give you the Latin name. Then he keeps going. He doesn't shove it down your throat, and he doesn't only refer to the animals by their Latin name, which is something that most people are not going to click with, myself included. So I enjoy the fact that, yeah, he told me the name. So if I need to know what that animal is, now I can go look it up. But he's also using the colloquial name. And he talks about the fact, sometimes animals will be known by more than one colloquial name, even though they are the same uh, uh, genus and same species. One of my favorite examples of that is that big cats in America can be known as mountain lions, and then pumas and cougars and catamounts. And there is some slight genetic variation between these animals, but they're all big tan cats. And just different parts of the world of America just tends to think about them in different ways. Mountain lion, puma, cougar, catamount, these kind of things. I just think that's kind of cool. Very similar idea with some of the animals that he encounters and some of the plants he encounters. He also introduced me to the term subnivean. Just let that word sink in. Subnivean. I love the feel of that word in my mouth. It means an animal that lives in a life cycle where it lives below the snow line during winter. So it's living under the snow or in the snow as a survival mechanism, because the snow can be, provide insulation, a place to hide, things like that. But that's the subnivean zone, and that's a beautiful word. So yeah, I really enjoyed Heinrich's book here. I'm looking forward to reading others of his books. He is a solid writer, very entertaining. I really enjoyed the way he pulled me into the story about which could be, excuse me, a somewhat dry topic at points when you're talking, for example, extended times about like the life cycles of turtles and how they survive in winter. But he still got me interested and kept me interested, and I never for one second thought he needed an editor.